Well, first of all, I'd love to ask each of you, how did you find your people that you knew you wanted to build and execute your visions with?
Yes. Some people you've worked with before, you bring them along, you just know how this is going to work out, but also keep an open mind as who stumbles upon your way, right? Like just look for traits that have worked for you. I actually, during the first phase of COVID, dropped everything and went to work for the food bank. And so we were running pop-up pantries across the city, and I'd have 40 volunteers that would show up, and I needed 5 of them to be super reliable, smart, hardworking, and I really needed those 5 super volunteers. So I developed a technique to find those people in 30 seconds, probably 80% rate of success, but keep on refining that.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I would say that first, I was really, really bad at it. So I hired a bunch of people for Ahura AI, and eventually, after having 15-person team, I went back to a team size of 1. It was just me. I lost all my people. I was that bad at recruiting the right people and managing them. So I had to learn how to be a much better manager and leader, because throughout my career, I had recruited and managed salespeople, which is quite different than recruiting and managing tech people and operators and marketing people. And so, and again, I was really fortunate because if you've ever used Google Translate, the guy that invented Google Translate decided to turn down a $10 million a year offer from Google to come work for me for $150. My CMO, she used to write speeches for Steve Jobs and John Sculley at Apple, and was an executive there for a number of years. My chief of staff reported directly to the CEO of Salesforce and Google Cloud, who was an executive there for 8 years. And so they essentially came to me. So Dekai, my CTO, was on my advisory board for a year and came to me and said, hey, I want to be your CTO. Trisha Chen was introduced to me by one of my investors, and after doing 3 months of due diligence on me and talking to 50 people that I know, came to me and said, hey, I want to be on your team. And so I think what changed is the way that I managed my team, the way that I engaged with the world shifted, where when I started really focusing on how can I impact 1 billion people in a positive way and just giving selflessly, I think it began attracting the right people that wanted to be a part of that journey and have that impact on the world as well.
You guys just did such a great job. I think trial and error is kind of a big portion of it, and really getting lucky. Like you said, stay open. I think that in the end of the day, to me, the more I trust into my observation skills and allow myself, to trust the judgment and not necessarily get inflame my head and my decision with fluffiness and things that shine, and just stay focused on observation and use what I've learned through however long I've been working, 20 years working with people, trust my initial judgment. That's been kind of the thing that works for me with choosing people I work with. And every time I get traced into something shiny and fluffy, but inside of myself I just know it always bites in the behind, and then the trial turns into an error.
Yeah, that's really great advice. That's awesome. Wait, and also Charlotte, you've had an incredible career as well as a mentor. So I would love to know too, how does mentorship affect your leadership as a founder and your experience in this space? And how can one-on-one mentorship change or improve your employees as well as you and the leadership team?
Yeah, thank you for this. That was very kind. There's a fine line between mentoring and coaching people, right? Mentoring, you tap into your experience, and hopefully there's something you've been through your career that you can share with someone so they avoid the gaps or they go faster. Coaching is a little bit different, and I tend to prefer it because you remove yourself from, I'm going to tell you what I did and this is how it's going to help you. It forces you to ask people questions and help them find the way. I always think about coaching as bringing people to the water, but at the end of the day, it will be up to them to drink the water.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you've gotta help people get in the door, but then they have to do it. You know. Yeah, incredible. And then also, I'd love to know also, we're kind of in the era of, the discourse of the Great Resignation. Like you said, Bryan, at one point you had a team of 15, it was down back to you. What has been your best success now, kind of coming back and everything, to kind of retain talent and keep people that can execute your vision with you every step of the way?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So my team now is about 20 people, and they've been with me now for over a year. To me, I think it's just taking care of your people, right? Making sure that they are empowered to make decisions, making sure that they enjoy doing what they're doing, making sure that the way that you make decisions as a group are ways where everybody is heard. So Simon Sinek has a great way of talking about this, where he says leaders should eat last, right? They should always speak last in meetings as well. And so fortunately, I'm surrounded by a leadership team that are all 10 times smarter than me. So it makes it easier for me in group meetings to actually sit there and listen to everybody's perspective before sharing my own. And I think that's pretty critical. I mean, really smart people don't want to go somewhere and just be told what to do. They want to have the freedom to make decisions and run their departments the way that they see fit. And oftentimes, if you have the right person in place, you can give them a lot of room to roam and make their decisions themselves. And secondly, I also let people live where they want. I don't care about people showing up at 9 a.m. or what time they work. Some of my team works in the middle of the night. I'm okay with that. As long as they get their work done, I give them tons of freedom to do it the way they want to and from whatever location they want to. So my COO wants to spend a month in Georgia, in like close to Russia. This is like before the war. And so great, like he got an Airbnb out there. He was there with his girlfriend. So that just gives them a certain level of quality of life that enables them to feel fulfilled.
Yeah, Irina, same question to you. How have you felt in your space and your startup, keeping the people around you and making sure they follow through?
I work with different teams, so kind of my situation is different. I don't necessarily have. I work on many different projects with many different teams, and so it's kind of different. And for me, it goes back to what you both were saying: hearing, trusting them, and then also I like to surround myself with people that are. If I'm A, I want them to be A+. So I feel that there's, I'm looking for somebody that I can constantly be learning from. And as soon as I have learned, I want more. And so for me, that has been the driving, kind of the driver behind all of the growth that I've been experiencing working with teams.
Wow, that's really amazing. And then also, both, I know, many of you have also had experience on the other side of the table, angel investing and venture investing. What does it look like to find good teams on that side?
So I look for people that are really gritty. I look for evidence that...
At the Grit Daily House?
Exactly. No, I'm dead serious about this. Like, look, building a tech company is extremely difficult. When people found a company, they're competing with other founders who have had a ton of success, and still, 97% of them fail, which means that in order to succeed, you have to be able to go through all of the ups and downs of building a company, and there will be many. And so I look for people that show evidence that they've had those kind of experiences in their lives. Now, for me, I lived in a refugee camp, worked my way up from nothing, and so if something isn't going right, it's, okay, cool, I'm going to keep going no matter what. That's what I want to see in all the people that I invest in, and every single one of my portfolio companies has that.
Very cool.
Yeah, the same pivoting. I like to see how they react in different situations. And for me, when I interview and when I talk to potential investments, I like to ask questions that make them feel very uncomfortable. And I see how they respond. If they respond with self-defense, to me that demonstrates that as the challenges are going to be arriving because there's no sugar walking anywhere. You could fly high and then you fall, and as long as you just don't hit the ground and die, you have ability to fly again. So it's kind of the startup life and then an investor life too, but to me that demonstrates that they're not going to be able to work through their personal problems to be able to adapt to changes and to the difficult decision making. And so if you can make a difficult decision and not emotionally respond to a pokey question that I ask, to me that already puts you into like the successful pile category, and that is actually very hard to find.
Wow. Yeah, it's great that you've all found such great collaborators and mentors and teams throughout your careers. I guess I'll ask one more fast question. I mean, this is the Grit Daily panels, they keep them going. This is speedy. But I'd love to open it up to the audience. But first, each of you, I'd love to know what's one piece of advice that you would give a first-time founder who is really breaking into this space, has a great idea, knows what they want to do, but can't go alone. How would you recommend they find the right people to work with and collaborate with?
I can go. I'll go. I think that, so if you're a lone wolf and you've never done this before, I'm just repeating the question. I would say that go out there, go to meetups, go find yourself a co-founder that have actually gone through this experience, and then make sure you stay focused on your objective. So like, what is your objective? If it is to find a co-founder, stay focused on that. If it is to raise money, if it's $150,000, stay focused on it. Do not make business development meetings for the future when you're going to be this big glamorous whatever, and waste your time on business development. Stay focused on raising money for your stage that is appropriate. A lot of entrepreneurs waste their time on aimless meetings and discussions.
That's a really good call. I would say be careful about the people that you hire. In my view, it makes sense to wait a little longer to find the right person rather than bringing on a co-founder that's like almost the right person, because that can have far-reaching consequences for your organization if you bring on the wrong person, because it's really hard to part ways. It's painful. It's a process. And so I would say find people who match are able to have strengths that are your weaknesses, that are going to be good fits, that cover the things that you're not good at, but definitely take the time to meet as many people as possible to find the right person that is going to be with you for the long haul, because it's a marriage. If you're bringing on a co-founder, it's 7 to 10 years. And probably you're going to work together in other capacities in the long term. So you don't want to just go with the first person that you date.
Yeah, so I haven't been on the VC side. I've only been on the startup side, and not long enough to fail. So I'll revisit that one day. But find people that have the same values. So you talked about resilience. I talk a lot about accountability as well. Even if you didn't break the glass, I want to hear that there could have been a different way for the glass not to break. Not to tell me that she broke the glass. I don't want to hear that. And the skills, yes, to a certain degree, they're needed. But there's a lot of skills that can be taught, and especially in a startup environment, you learn how to do many, many different things. So instead of trying to find someone that does this piece of job that won't be necessary in 3 months, 2 months, it's certainly 6 months, focus on the values. And it works for corporate teams as well.
That's great advice. Yeah. I would love to go ahead and open it up to if anyone has any audience questions. Yes, you right there. Would you like?
Hi, I'm just going to speak.
Speak loudly. That's perfect.
My question is, when you're starting something, you need focus and vision and clear objectives. But on the other hand, you don't want to fall into the trap of groupthink. You want to somehow compassionately welcome diverse opinions, but then come up with an actual decision. So I want to know how do you do this? How do you balance diversity of thought with clarity of focus?
That's
a great question. So for the microphone, just make sure we have it. How do you balance diversity of thought on your team with a clarity of focus in your vision?
Yeah, I'll go. Well, it is a dance and it is a balance. And in the end of the day, if it is your company and you're founding it, you have to understand that you have to trust yourself. And you have to keep, I believe that you have to keep your core, and you have to, if you have the vision, you have the vision. Others can come and try to add to your vision, but it's up to you to decide whether it belongs to you or not. And in the end of the day, entrepreneurship to you, either is it expressing your vision, or you have a business idea that you think will make money. It can be both, right? But if you're using vision, which I know you used, just trust yourself. Remember, a lot of success comes from people who were called crazy. Most of big successes come from somebody, from groups of people trying to convince you that you are insane, okay? And you're doing things wrong and it's never going to work. The only way you can prove yourself that it's working is that if you make your objective, and the objective for business, it's all around first raising money. Because without money, you're not going to really get anywhere. So make that objective, go get the money, because the money that is going to come into your company is going to validate your idea. And everything else you can just use as a data point and choose. Does this belong to me or this does not belong to me? Is totally fair. And in the end of the day, you live with yourself, and your vision and your fulfillment is there for you to manifest, because what you want to see in life and in the reality. And if when you die, if it did not work out and somebody was right, at least you were honest with yourself.
That's a fantastic question, and I think an amazing answer from the vision perspective. So I'm going to answer it in a slightly different way, because you covered that so amazingly well. I'm going to get granular for regular decisions that are made on a regular basis within the company. So what I do, and I found this to be very effective, is I have an incredibly diverse team, both from backgrounds, gender, as well as diversity of thought. And so when we have our leadership meetings, everybody has their own perspective from their life experience and their expertise that they bring to the table, which means that I have fantastic advice from a lot of different angles to be able to make a good decision. And then I'm also very fortunate I have an incredible group of advisors, including Matt McKibben and Ted, who are right here.
They're in the audience.
I have a ton of advisors that I also rely on, who have had a lot of exits, who have gone through a lot of the experiences that we're going through, and can warn me about the potholes in the road, or share different perspectives that enable me to be successful.
I'll even go more granular than that, if I can. I think it's a clear expectations in our relationship, right? So you're in this leadership team with your own expertise. It's on me to be clear about what I'll do with your advice. And I always frame those conversations with, hey, I'd like to consult you about something, right? I'm not asking you to rewire my business plan. I'm asking you to consult on something. And I found that being straightforward about my expectation with any of you has helped me tremendously in managing that situation where you're going to give me your advice, but I might not take it, but I consulted you, right? So I try to be as clear as possible in those expectations, and it helps most of the time.
Those are amazing answers. Thank you so much. Oh yes, we have one more question. That'd be great. Yes, go ahead.
This is a quick one, but when you're ready to go to market, what's the importance of building a community and a raving audience? And that community could be your actual audience or other collaborators down the board and thought leaders.
Yeah, so one more time, when you're ready to go to market, when you're building your company, how do you build your community, and what are your steps that you take to build your community?
Well, I think that's a fantastic question, and I actually did that. I built a community called Oasis, and it's a separate entity, but it's a private community of impact-driven CEOs, impact-driven investors, celebrities, and global experts that come together in these private events that are non-solicitation environments governed by Chatham House rules. And so even though it's non-solicitation, we've done over $200 million of transactions in the past year alone between members of this community, because they engage with each other, become friends first, and then collaborate to solve real problems. Now what happens is I put a lot into these events and enable people to meet each other. I help people meet business partners and so forth. But what that's done is create a very tight-knit community of some of the most powerful people in the world who want to help each other. And so then when I need help, I have a ton of people that would love to help because they've benefited so much from the community and from each other. And so it's just this raving group of people that love each other and are actual friends first, rather than everybody sitting across the table from each other trying to just get the best deal for themselves. And so I think everybody should build a community around themselves, around something that they care about. For us, it's about existential risk and saving the human race from extinction. But I think everybody
just
should
like
build
little
something.
things.
Yeah,
I'd say that when you have a product and you're ready to go to market, you need to understand your marketplace, right? So, and target that audience around you. That's very important. Often I see people kind of going and building up overall community and following, and it's not very useful for application for your product. And remember too, it costs a lot of money. So when you do, make sure that you raise proper amount of money to properly reach out. It costs a lot of money to go to market and to acquire audience that actually pays. Yeah, so it's all in the traditional VC guidelines, and it's all there. Just stay focused and don't get distracted by fluffy things and shiny things.
So I was in those shoes. So before you go to market, you somehow need to have your audience, and that's the better process, right? That's when you're validating your idea, even before you talk to those guys, right? So in my case, my startup was about how to help people reach their goals through accountability. So of course you start with your friends and family, right? But that goes only so far. And I've always worked in large corporations with large budgets. So there, it was just my bank account and me, right? So what I did was go to Reddits and places like that and find my tribe, people who had accountability buddies, and very quickly, very quickly, those people were already seeking help, were very, very happy to raise their hand and find different ways to get help. So many different products. But in my case, I needed to validate this idea. Is this idea going to even have legs before I start speaking with guys like you? So in a short way, you should build your tribe before you go to market, and that's the better phase of your project.
But in a tech company, you really want to stay focused building your technology, right? Yep. So, and that's the difference in the different types of businesses. Yep. And different models. So if you're a technology company and you developed your tech, the audience acquisition is a normal calculation, and in your market you should have that. But it's true. I mean, as you are doing it, you want to make sure you are you understand, what news channel you need to be. If you're I don't know, a biotech solution for whatever it is, and you're going to go in automotive and make your distribution there, the audience that's going to be interested in it is really going to be worthless for you, right? So the money you spend on that is going to be very expensive and ineffective. To me, it always comes down to money and your calculations, and how do you present it to investors.
That's a great place to end on. I think we're about there, but I wanted to just thank my wonderful panelists at the Grit Daily House, Irina, Bryan, and Charlotte. I learned a ton about leadership and building community, and I hope you all did too. Thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.